Let's travel back to a time before the dinosaurs went extinct. The African continent was divided in two. Over millennia, it merged, slowly erasing this separation as the lands rose. Fast forward to the last ice age, when sea levels were 130 meters lower than today. The poles were vast and cold, with ice covering Europe. But there was one corner of the world where life flourished: North Africa. Back then, the Sahara wasn't a desert, but a thriving green paradise where rain fell generously, and massive saltwater lakes, often mistaken for seas, spread across the land. A channel still connected the Mediterranean Sea to southern Africa, sustained only by rivers and lakes. In the midst of it all, a fertile place emerged, called the Isle of Atlas by the ancients, referencing the mountains that today bear the same name. While now confined to a small area, these mountains once spanned the entire African continent. Later, the Greeks and Egyptians would remember this island as so vast it rivaled what they knew as Asia and Libya combined. Whoever controlled the fastest trade routes held power, making the Isle of Atlas the wealthiest empire of distant antiquity. Among the Great Lakes of this land, one stood out: Megaphezon. The term Phezon, meaning fertile region in Berber, reminds us of a past full of life and wealth. Thousands of years later, this lake dried up, transforming into a desert, leaving only a small fertile area. Its ancient inhabitants became the Garamantes, a great civilization descended from the Atlanteans. The Garamantes adorned their heads with two feathers, a symbol they shared with the gods Amun and Bennu in ancient Egypt. This suggests that Egyptians adopted some Atlantean beliefs over time. The Garamantes worshipped the goddess Neith and were depicted in Egyptian hieroglyphs dating back to 1300 BC. Facing desertification, they developed an ingenious underground irrigation system called fogaras, also known as qanats. These channels transported water from underground aquifers to their crops, preventing evaporation and enabling agriculture in extreme climates. To farm, they covered the salty soil with fertile earth. Maintaining the fogaras fell to slaves, captured by the Garamantes using horse-drawn chariots, a skill inherited from the Atlantean culture. Herodotus called these slaves troglodyte Ethiopians, describing them as the fastest runners in the known world, capable of outrunning horses. These people likely lived near the Garamantes on the Tassili plateau, meaning plateau between rivers in Tamahak. This region, once abundant in water, may also translate to Plateau of the Bull, referencing both rock paintings and bull worship in their culture. The Forest of Rocks is an incredible natural formation, surrounded by numerous rock paintings. The term troglodytes refers to their cave dwellings, which can still be visited in Tassili, though the area is now a hostile desert. These caves contain over 15,000 rock paintings, most dating between 8,000 BC and 6,000 BC. These paintings depict daily life and the region's environment, featuring chariots with 1, 2, or 4 horses and a lush world full of life, with hippos, gazelles, elephants, crocodiles, giraffes, rhinos, cows, bulls, rams, fish, and people fishing. Geoglyphs in the area, seen from above, resemble concentric rings that may hint at a connection to the Atlantean capital. Disturbing anthropomorphic figures of unknown meaning are also present. Descendants of these Ethiopians may be the Wodaabe people, living far south of Tassili, Niger. The Wodaabe are cattle herders and perform a unique courtship ritual, painting their faces, adorning their bodies with ornaments and amulets, and wearing a feather on their heads. During the dance, they make sounds and gestures that may echo the bat-like shrieks mentioned by Herodotus. Some historians identify the Tubu or Tubo people as the Ethiopians Herodotus described, but the Wodaabe seem to match the descriptions more closely. The feathers they wear evoke references to the Garamantes, Libyans, and the Egyptian god Amun. Their body paint may also resemble pigments used in the rock paintings. The Garamantes were a powerful and expansive nation in antiquity. They were not particularly sociable and resisted conquest for millennia. They controlled the primary trade route between the Mediterranean and southern Africa, playing a similar role to their Atlantean ancestors, though in a harsh desert. They inhabited numerous settlements and cities along the central part of this route, maintaining control. Notable among these were Morzuk and Garama, their capital. Further south, this route included the ancient settlement of Bilma, whose inhabitants were likely known as the Atlantes, also descended from the Atlanteans. The Atlantes specialized in salt production, an essential resource in antiquity. The word salary originates from the importance of salt. According to tradition, the Atlantes cursed the sun at noon, as its scorching heat punished their people. The salt pans of Bilma, a key hub for salt production and a meeting point for caravans, managed to survive in an extremely hostile environment. However, many other cities in the region were completely or partially abandoned, such as Fort Pakot, the ruins of Jaba, and even parts of Fachi, located 300 kilometers from the first two. These cities have not been studied or dated, but could hold the key to uncovering significant aspects of our past. It's worth recalling Herodotus's words. Their houses are built of blocks of salt, because this is a part of Libya where rain is non-existent. If it rained, these salt walls would not hold. This description matches what is observed in some houses of these cities. To the north of the Garamantes territory lay the city of Tripoli, by the Mediterranean. Around it lived a people called the Lotophagi, or lotus eaters. This was one of the main trade destinations where the Garamantes exchanged salt, dates, gold, and slaves. However, with the inexorable advance of the desert and the arrival of Islam, the Garamantean civilization vanished, leaving behind only traces of its grandeur. In the ancient Garamantean capital, Garama, which is currently under excavation, remains have been discovered that promise to reveal secrets about their history. It is known that, like the Trojans, the Garamantes buried their city after several millennia to build a new one atop the ruins of the previous one. Perhaps in the coming years, this city will offer us a window into the past and the legends of a people who thrived in extreme conditions. The other great lake of the humid Sahara was Mega-Chad, which, like its counterpart, succumbed to the desert. Today, only a small portion of water remains, constantly at risk of disappearing. The inhabitants of these lakes, now known as the Berbers, still carry the legacy of these forgotten lands. They dress in blue, just as the Atlanteans did when conducting trials, and in the past worshipped the goddess Neith, the bull with the solar disk, the god Ra, and the god Amun. They also created the oldest known script, though sadly lost. This script has been found in distant locations, such as the sealed door of the Great Pyramid of Egypt and the Canary Islands. This aligns with Plato's words. They ruled over many other islands in the ocean. Herodotus, in 430 BC, noted the location of the direct descendants of the Atlanteans. In his account, he describes the peoples inhabiting the coasts between Egypt and Lake Tritonis, then attempts to map those inland, though this task proves difficult. Even so, he makes it clear that from Thebes in Egypt stretches a range of sand, salt, and hills all the way to the Pillars of Hercules. It's worth noting that this map depicts a lake in the Baudelaire depression, which existed at that time, along with Lake Tritonis, the Triton River, and the Sinips River, mentioned by Herodotus. However, the Osahabi River and its lakes had already dried up by then. They are included in the maps only for illustration purposes. The route described by Herodotus begins in Thebes, although many historians claim he was mistaken and that the real starting point was Memphis. Herodotus insists on starting in Thebes because Zeus with a ram's head was worshipped there, identifying him as the Egyptian god Amun. According to his account, the journey from the temple of Amun in Thebes to the temple of Amun among the Ammonians, clearly in Siwa, took 10 days. However, this route from Thebes would require more time than stated. From Siwa, he narrates a journey of another 10 days to the Nasamones, a people who, according to Herodotus, leave their herds by the sea in summer and travel to a region called Augila to collect dates. This place, which still retains its name, is the next point on the route. From Augila, a 10-day journey leads to the Garamantes. At this point, Herodotus's account subtly changes. He mentions that the fastest way to reach the Lotus Eaters is from the Garamantes, demonstrating that Herodotus knew the Garamantes route and had precise information about it, which allowed him to describe it further. He recounts that 10 days from the Garamantes are the Atlanteans, described as those who curse the sun for its scorching heat. These Atlanteans lived in cities like Bilma. Then, 10 days later, he mentions the Atlantes. About the Atlantes, Herodotus details, "Near these Atlantes is a mountain called Atlas, thin and conical in shape. It is said to be so tall that its peak cannot be seen, as clouds always cover it in both winter and summer. The locals call it the pillar of the sky. These men are named Atlantes after this mountain. It is said that they eat no living creatures and have no dreams when they sleep. The volcano now known as Emikusi in the Sahara is the mountain of Atlas. This place gave rise to the legend of Atlas, the titan who held up the sky and, later, the earth. In this region there once was a kingdom ruled by the great King Atlas and his 9 brothers. According to legend, Atlas had 7 daughters, one of whom united with Zeus, identified as Amun, a figure tied to these lands by his 2 feathers, akin to Libyan customs. From this union was born Hermes Trismegistus, the Atlantean who brought the oldest knowledge to Egypt, transforming it into a hub of wisdom. For this reason, Egypt became the place where philosophers, mathematicians, and many important Jewish figures began their journey into ancient knowledge. However, this story, while fascinating, is just a part of Atlas's legacy. This king, whose story turned into myth, ruled a vast and mysterious territory that centuries later the Greeks would know as Atlantis. He inherited this kingdom from his father, the greatest sailor of all, Poseidon, king of the ancient seas, who walled Atlantis and also built the walls of Troy. This is the story of Atlas, the Isle of Atlas, and the destiny of a kingdom so grand and legendary that its echoes still resound in the darkest corners of the desert, more than 10,000 years after its tragic end. If you enjoy these videos, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the continuation of this thrilling story. You can also support me on Patreon with a subscription, which will help me release videos more regularly. I'll see you in the next video, and until there is no darkness,